Hello, I'm Sandra Shevey. This week, I'm going to be discussing and revisiting my interviews with Paul Simon and Goddard Lieberson. I interviewed Paul Simon when he had broken with Art Garfunkel and was going solo. He, previous to the union with Art Garfunkel, had been a solo performer and refers in the interview to an album he did in Great Britain. We did the interview in his exquisite New York City townhouse just off Fifth Avenue in the 90s. He had just broken up with his wife, Peggy, and was seeing Carrie Fisher, which I learned when I interviewed Carrie Fisher. Paul Simon went to Queens College, and in the interview, he discusses the problems he had being local, being Jewish, and the moguls, Columbia Records, believing that he really would not succeed outside of New York. This, of course, was proven untrue, as now he is known not merely as Paul Simon, but as Paul Friedrich Simon, which I think is quite funny. Goddard Lieberson was the man who, at Columbia Records, the vice president, started the pop music label, and Paul and Art Garfunkel were signed to that label. My interview with Goddard explores the materialism which he himself found in the pop and rock music movement, which, of course, Columbia, as other labels, capitalized on. I hope you enjoy both interviews.
Lyrically, I've changed too, actually.
I mean, I was listening to all the albums before I came over, just, to refresh, and the marvelous innocence of the first song is, just really lovely. Oh, I just love some of them.
I know, it's sad to listen to it. When I hear how innocent. Well, did you ever hear the album that I did in England alone with just guitar?
No.
Oh, no. Christ, that's really innocent.
That's before the one we have.
Yeah. Oh,
but it never got released, or what?
It's never released here.
Why not?
It's just R&B. It has all of the songs, but just with the guitar on them, You can have it. I'll give it to you as a present.
Lovely, thank you.
You'll get a kick out of it. It's very old. It must be 8 years old.
It's funny because, I don't know, I mean, for instance, your music meant more to me than the music of Dylan or some of the other people. I don't know why, Maybe because that was very political and yours was more, just sort of, I guess, just growing up. Just sort of social and sexual or whatever, that kind of thing. And, that's fine. I mean, it brings back college, so...
Yeah, it's in the early stuff, it's very collegiate, isn't it?
Yeah, right, very much so. Drinking coffee and listening and reading Emily Dickinson and reading Robert Frost and stuff.
Right. Well, that was written just after I got out of college.
Where did you go to school?
Here in New York at Queens College.
I'm teaching a course there.
Really?
It's amazing. Anyone can write anything at Queens College.
Well, I didn't like Queens College too much, but that didn't mean that I liked the idea of college, but I didn't like Queens College.
Yeah, right.
It's kind of a...
But it's funny how you could just freak out and write that great stuff with very little inspiration.
What do you mean, little inspiration?
Well, I mean, you think...
You mean at Queens College?
Yeah, right.
I have to put the glasses back on, because now I'm tearing again.
All right.
Well, it's imagination. It's being a literature major and all that.
Right.
Opens you up into new worlds that you didn't never know about.
Yeah, your stuff is very literary. I mean...
the early stuff is very...
there's one song...
It's not so literary as it is literature major.
Yeah, well, I mean, of course there are references to Frost and Dickinson, etc. But there's also that W.H. Auden, I think, spoke at Queens the other day, which is interesting. And there's I think it's the 59th Street Bridge song, Dappled.
Right.
Dappled and drowsy. Dappled and drowsy and ready for sleep. And Auden is Dappled Dawn, I think, from Limestone. I think on Limestone.
Right, and I got that from my introduction to Dappled was via Frost, Stephen Hero. That's like I can't remember what it is.
Yeah.
A dappled cloud. I can't remember what it is, but something in Joyce. In Stephen
Joyce,
Hero.
yeah.
What did I say? Frost?
Yeah, right. Joyce. Yeah. Your music is very Joycean. Sure.
I must be really confused.
That's why I like it more than Dylan, because Dylan is it's much more what he says. He's very literary. You know, I don't really dig his music, but his poetry is really interesting. But your stuff, I mean, it's not that intellectual. You just feel it, you know. And Joyce has a way of, when you read Joyce, you just feel it. You know, it's not really what he's saying. It's sort of like it's how he says it,
Right.
and the physiological response he produces. You know.
Well, I'm sure that's where that word came from at that time.
Oh, dappled, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, you also do a lot of groovy things with the ooze, and of course that's I guess from Black Soul stuff.
Well, that's just lyric
Those
writing. That's like.
Yeah, but 𝐒𝐚𝐽, Mrs. Robinson, and the girl who took you to the woods, and ooh, it felt so good. I mean, those
Right.
little sort of sex words or whatever, you know, are very riveting. And put the line.
Well, that's lyric writing. That's like Chuck Berry influenced. He was a very good, he was a real good lyric writer for sounds. He wrote great sound words.
I'm not really into his. Lennon supposedly is Chuck Berry is his hero too.
Well, he was a really good
Yeah.
songwriter. He
Like
really
the-
wrote fine words
yeah.
that sang very easily, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big thing in writing songs. I think the words have to just flow.
Right.
And I think I do that more than I did in the earlier times.
Yeah. Well, you always had a real gift for putting, you know, couplet together or whatever. You know, I mean, the new one, I forgot the name, the Detroit.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that, you know, that's good, but I really like the one To America better. You know, took a train from Detroit, left in Saginaw or whatever.
Right.
You know.
Oh yeah, that was
I mean,
nice
that
too.
kind of airy space. I mean, you know, they're very similar songs in a certain way. I guess looking for the American dream.
That's right. I hadn't thought of it. That's right.
Um,
They are similar songs. Yeah.
You do write your own stuff.
Yeah, but I had never made that connection. But that's right. That is a real connection. They're very similar. In fact, they're both in 3/4 time too.
Everybody forgets at Monterey too. There was a kind of a mall with shops on it. Do you remember? Were you there?
I wasn't there,
Too
no,
young.
but I saw the film. No, I'm not too young. I just wasn't there.
But there was a mall with shops on
Yeah.
it, and everybody was selling hip articles of one kind or another, and so it was all laid out there. But I think too much has been made of that.
But how did you feel when you first heard Joplin sing, for instance? I mean, I remember there was a shot in the film of Cass Elliott's face just beaming.
Yeah, I was beaming too, but I thought I was hearing a girl who had been brought up in black music. I don't know if that was the case at all.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Port Arthur, Texas.
Yeah.
I think Laverne Baker was her favorite singer.
Right. And I thought, gosh, well, that's what it is. It's,
Yeah.
you know, all of these things have gotten so out of perspective. Can you eat crab meat? It's not kosher, but it all these things have gotten out of perspective, you know. A lot of people, I think I was among them, John Hammond, were plumping for black music. We were with Count Basie. We saw Benny Goodman put the first black players in his orchestra. You know, you can't understand the impact of this when he played it. He was playing at the Pennsylvania Hotel,
Yeah.
and there were 2 players in the band who were black. I mean, all of that now seems so childish and silly,
Yeah.
but at that time had really quite a different meaning. And Hammond and I and friends, we used to go to Harlem regularly and hear people. And we used to go to, I went with John once to a Holy Roller, you know, a gospel thing.
Yeah.
And you know, this is what's going on now.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the genesis of what's her name?
Franklin? Aretha?
Aretha. Her father was a minister.
Reverend.
This is the genesis of Aretha. It's the genesis of almost half or more of the black singers, I think.
Right.
And mixed in with that with jazz and country music. And
Right.
the elements are simply put together differently. But I don't think there's very much difference. And you could see what happened afterwards. They still called it rock. They said country rock,
Sure. Folk rock.
jazz rock,
Acid
folk rock,
right.
acid.
But at the time, when you heard the Mamas and the Papas and Joplin and some of the other groups in Monterey, did you see the potential? Did you find them
Oh,
very
yeah, I
enough,
thought they
or
were
just,
terrific.
Or just copies? Did you feel, well,
No. I didn't think they were copies. I thought they were terrific, but I thought it was fascinating how the vitality of this music, which made its way into these people.
Yeah. But what did you think needed to be done to give it something extra, or to make it if we, if as an executive, if we're going to do this kind of stuff, we really should do it X, Y, and Z ways.
Well, I didn't specify that. Clive was there too. That's absolutely true. Yeah. I don't want to, in any of this, take anything away from him, because it's it has
That's because he pays for his son's bar mitzvah with
company.
No,
well, it was more than that. But anyway, I don't want the aspect of my kicking him while he's down. Because I put him in that job, and I made his whole career, whatever it was. Although it is kind of amusing, while he had his great success, you'd never heard about me. The minute he got in trouble, they said he was my protege. That was... Anyway, it wasn't a question of immediately saying, well, look, this is a big commercial thing. It wasn't that at all. It was like any new music that we did. Well, we were doing a lot of new music by that time, different. I was a little hazy on the dates, and I can't remember. What was the date of the Monterey was?
I guess about 60, 65, 66?
Something like that. But we had gone along quite well. And I think we had in the company then Paul Revere and the Raiders. I'm not sure the Byrds were. I can't remember if the Byrds were in or not. I think they were.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really all that.
And Simon and Garfunkel probably were already.
Yeah. So it wasn't all that.
Yeah.
When people tried to make that into a focal point, but it wasn't that. Anyway, it all goes this way. It doesn't go like that. And
yeah.